I want to do a little bit of the practical about understanding credit. You would be surprised how many young people, including myself, I was not taught this when I was young. Fortunately, I had never got credit cards or really got into debt. I was going to college, so I was on a little bit of a tight budget, and I worked and I saved and I did what I needed to do, but nobody taught me about credit. And thankfully, again, I got saved and born again, and I was responsible. So I didn't get like bad credit. I just didn't have any credit because I didn't know. But I had a lot of friends that, went the other way. They got credit cards. I had one friend went and he had a pretty good credit score. He didn't have a lot of credit, but he had a good credit score, and they got him approved. And this is like, 20-something odd years ago. And they approved him on like a $60,000 truck. And make a long story short, he just could not make the payments.
Yeah.
And it ruined his credit. And he's still trying to come out of it because, I'm actually trying to encourage him to use a few credit tricks and rebuild his credit. But he needed to buy a used truck, and he couldn't get approved for a used truck because his credit score was so bad. So I want to show you a couple of things. First, I'm going to do a few scripture. What it says about debt. If you want to look at that, Romans, we'll do Romans 13, verse 8. Just so we have a good reference. It says, "Owe no one anything except to love one another, for he who loves one another has fulfilled the law." So obviously it's good to not have debt because you are a servant. If you owe money, you're a servant to the person that you owe money to. So I'll just give you before I get much more into this, I have not had a car payment for probably 15 years, maybe. When I hadn't had a car payment for a long time. I haven't bought a new car in 40 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And everything that I own now, personally, is paid off. So, I didn't borrow money to buy them. I waited until I could afford it, and I just bought them. So I wouldn't have a car payment. House payment was a different story. It's a little bit harder to buy a house cash, especially in the market today. And I'll tell you my philosophy on that for you is a house is more of an investment than it is a debt.
That's right.
So you don't want to be, you don't want to go buy a $1 million house where you can't make the payment, but you want to buy something. And again, it's a little bit different in our Dene culture because a lot of the homes are, they're on home site leases but it is getting, I want to encourage you, I've heard lots of stories, and I know that now they're starting to actually be able to give people home loans to build on their home site leases, which used to, that was pretty rare. And so I look at a home as something that, you know, either you're paying rent to somebody,
Yeah.
which you have the value of having a place to live, but you're not gaining any equity, or you're not building anything if you're not owning. When we first got married, we didn't even think, we had not even a clue, not even an inkling that we were going to buy a house. Just nobody told us.
Yeah.
Nobody told us anything about it, you know? And so this next scripture that I'm going to use, just to tell you that the Bible does not condemn borrowing money. But when you borrow money, it has to be paid back. That's
Yeah.
you know, and just so you know, we're going to understand credit. The basis of your credit score that we're going to look at tonight is about you paying your debts or not paying your debts.
Yeah.
That's how they determine your credit score, and I'll give you the benefits of that in just a little bit. So Psalms 37, let's look at that. I'm so thankful. Because I do believe that, you know, we're in a season of God to increase His people
Amen.
and His church. Verse 21. The wicked borrows and does not repay, but the righteous shows mercy and gives.
Yeah.
So it's talking about us paying our debts, that, you know, the basis of what your credit score is if you have a credit card, you have revolving. If you buy furniture on a payment plan, if you have a Home Depot card and you remodel your house and you make payments, all of that, you have a car payment, it all shows up. It tells if you pay on time or if you pay late, all of that stuff. They literally keep track of that and determine if you're a good person to loan money to. And okay, Proverbs 28. I'm just gonna get through these because one who increases his possessions by usury and extortion gathers it for him who will pity the poor. So there's a fair interest rate, but we're never to exploit the poor. All of these quick loan places is the prime example of it's
Yes.
literally evil.
Yep.
What they do to people it's evil.
Yep.
They charge them interest on a small amount of money that there is no way. If they're having to borrow $500 to pay their rent or to pay their electric bill, their utilities, and they charge them $300 interest,
Yep.
they can't ever catch up.
That's right.
A lot of them will use like a title for a vehicle, and they can't. By the time they almost think they're going to get caught up, they go back in, and the bill's $1,500.
That's right. Yep.
So it's evil.
Yeah.
Matthew 25:7. Just again to just kind of give you an overview. said. So you ought to have deposited my money with the bankers, and at my coming I would have received back my own with interest. So, interest, a fair interest rate is good business. That's just somebody else being able to use your money and you making a profit off of that is not wrong. So a good interest rate at a bank is not wrong.
Yeah.
But a 300% interest rate at a quick loan place is evil,
Come on.
right? The wisdom of God and the wisdom of the Word of God, Leviticus, and I'm not gonna, I'll let you read that yourself, but God had a provision that when you lent money to the poor, that you would not charge them interest, because the reason they're having to borrow is because they're already in trouble. They're already hurting. And if you add interest to it, you hurt them instead of help them.
That's right.
So God made a provision in His Word for when you loaned money to the poor, you would not charge them interest. And then secondly, it was an act of mercy to help somebody else that was in need. You helped them in a place of financial stress, but you didn't make money off of it. You didn't charge them money.
Yeah.
Everybody with me so far? So, again, the Bible does not condemn debt.
Yeah.
I know there's some people that are pretty anti-strict, and I'm good with being wise
That's right.
and not going into debt if you don't have to. But to buy a home, again, a home to me is an investment.
Mm-hmm.
When we first moved to Gallup, we didn't have a car payment. But Natalie traveled to Utah. She, took the kids places, sports events, winter time, and we didn't have a four-wheel drive. And I was like, you know what? Lord, she drives to Utah in the winter with the girls, and I can't go because I'm working. And she needs something a little better to drive. So that was actually, it was a used vehicle. But that's the last time I've had a car payment, was when we first moved to Gallup. Actually, I think I had 2 cars that were paid off. I traded them in, so I didn't have much of a car payment, but it was still a car payment to me, and I did not like car payments.
Yeah.
But I got it paid off, and at that, I just want to give you an example now of how your credit and how they keep track of your credit and what it does and what the difference is if you have good credit or bad credit. And then I will cover just a little bit. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail. I think we're going to maybe pray for some folks tonight.
Yeah.
So I gave you an example in here, and these are just general. I didn't include like licensing fee, title. I didn't put all of that in there, just so I could keep it very, very simple. So the first example is purchasing a used car. Today, if you purchase a $12,500 car, you're not going to get a real new, modern, it's going to be a little bit older and a little higher mileage anyway, but they still have a requirement of a down payment. So I included that in there so you could see. And I went out to 48 months, so it would keep the payment to what I believe people, if you get in this, especially in our area, if you get a payment much over $300 for somebody with a family, a single mom, they have a hard time making that payment. So I just kept it within the realm that I know for us. And I put the credit score at a good credit score at 750 plus. Your interest rate, as low as 6.99, so your payment would be $239 for 4 years or 48 months. The total amount paid on the loan would be $11,492.16, and that's interest for 4 years of $1,400.92. $1,492.16. If you have a credit score of about 600, and maybe some of them will finance a little bit lower than that, but it gets a little tougher for a finance company to do it. And the interest rate, look at the difference in the interest rate.
Yep.
For the same vehicle, the same down payment, I know some of the bigger dealers in Gallup that charge 28.9.
It's wrong.
It's wrong, but the sad part is they can't get a vehicle
Yeah.
anywhere else.
Yep.
And so they're stuck.
Yep.
But look at the difference in the payment. $353. And the interest is $5,500 more for the same vehicle in 4 years. So when we talk about somebody having or working on their credit score, learning to keep their credit score in a place where they get the best interest, do you know that it affects your insurance?
Yep.
If you have a low credit score, your insurance is higher. If you have a low credit score, your deposit on your electricity or your gas company is higher.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go to purchasing a house. This one just makes my mind crazy. So I gave you an example of a $150,000 home, which is gonna be
Can't
a,
find
can't find one.
one. And you can't find one.
Yeah,
I mean, you can,
but it's a little rough.
yeah, it's rough.
40, 50 years old and
Yeah.
needs lots of work.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm pretending that you're gonna get a real deal.
Yes.
This is like 5 years ago. When the economy was better.
Yes. Because prices have gone up a
Yeah.
lot. This same house, like I said, probably 4 years ago, the same house today is probably $225,000, $250,000,
Yeah.
right? It's gone up that much. But look at the difference if you have a $150,000 home, they usually will want somewhere close to 20%. So that's a $30,000 down payment, which I don't know if you can, sometimes you can find places that help people with a down payment.
Mm-hmm.
They have grants, they have stuff that can help families. You have to search and make sure they're legitimate, that they're not conning you and getting your social security number and your birthday, stealing your identity, because some of that goes on too. But just to see the difference in a good credit, a bad credit, a 30-year loan and a 15-year loan is pretty phenomenal. The first house that Natalie and I bought in Carlsbad, and we had been married quite a while. Like I said, we didn't even think about buying a house when we were first married. Nobody really, my family wasn't, we were best way to say it is, we lived in mobile homes most of our growing up. We lived out on the Navajo reservation. My dad worked in the oil field, my mom in the post office, and there wasn't really anything available to buy for homes. But I never even heard them discuss buying a home. So again, it wasn't even on my radar. I just had no reference points of, I just wasn't taught that way. And most of my friends, they were planning on getting married. They already had their house picked out, their down payment saved. They'd been paying on, they had their house almost paid off by the time I bought my first house. Come on, Bill. But if you're able, again, it is a great investment.
Yes.
And you could see the difference as I show you this. What it'll make in your payment, what you pay for one, and it just blows my mind. So let's look at it. $30,000 down on $150,000. We're going to finance $120,000 for 30 years. That's 360 payments. Again, that's what Natalie and I did our first one. And I think the first home we lived in, we lived in it about 5 years. And all we did was pay the interest.
Yeah.
We did. We never really made much progress because on a 30-year loan, your first 10 years, most of everything you pay goes to interest.
Yeah.
With a credit score of 750 plus, that's the interest rate, 7.947. Monthly payment is $876. The interest that you paid in 30 years was almost one and a half times the house.
Yes.
What you paid with the down payment total for a $150,000 house was double,
Yeah.
a little over double. And that's a fair interest rate
Yeah.
in
And
our
that's
market.
current scores.
Current.
Okay,
Yeah, that's kind of an average of what's the market right now.
right, okay.
Yeah, and they promised it's going up. So, if your credit score is 620 to 639, the interest rate for 30 years is 8.75. And that's a lot of money for a $150,000 home. You end up paying $369,000 by the time you paid it off. A little bit better on a 15-year. I actually was very surprised because I never looked at a lower credit score on a 15-year loan. There's not much difference if you have a 750 score or a 620 score. I will tell you that if you plug in under a 620 credit score on buying a home, it won't even give you an interest rate because they most likely will not finance you. 15 years at 7.512 is 1,113. Interest paid for 15 years is 80,000. That's $115,000 difference from a 30-year loan. And your payment is only a couple $100 more per month. So we're trying to give you a little wisdom if you're thinking about buying a home. If your credit score is 620 to 639, payment is not much more. total is not a whole lot more, which again, that just kind of surprised me. I had never looked at that it wouldn't be that much difference on a home mortgage, but if you can qualify, one of the other things is they have equity, so they're not too worried about you taking the house and running off somewhere, like with a vehicle. Not worried about you going to Mexico.
Leaving the car behind.
I do want to just give you a little bit also about if somebody wants to go into business, you do want to have a good plan,
Yeah.
but it's not wrong. And I'll tell you, even for me in business, I buy vehicles that will get the job done.
Yep.
And they're a little more expensive than what sometimes I even have to buy. But one of the reasons I do that is because they hold their value.
Yeah.
I will buy over a normal work truck that would get the job done. It's a little bit cheaper. But I'll buy the upper because when I go to resell it, the last one that I did, work truck, you know, it had the leather, sunroof. It had everything. And I drove it for 4 years, had 63,000 miles on it. I paid $58,000 for it. I got $55,000 for it
Wow.
after 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah. If it would have been the plain work truck, I'd have got 25.
That's right.
So,
Yep.
again, just a few things that over the years I've gained experience because I went the other way for a long time and I learned. I said, oh, this is how that works, huh?
Yeah.
So I gained a little wisdom doing that. Meaning in business, it's still a risk when you borrow money because you're supposed to pay it back. That's
Darn it.
what we do, right?
Yep.
So if you have a good business plan and you have good ideas and you can put together a business plan, and the reason I'm suggesting this is because I know a lot of local artists
Yeah.
that, you know, one of the reasons I believe we're covering money and this morning teaching about God wanting to prosper people is I watch them have such talent and have a great product, and it's worth a lot of money. But because of the mentality and nobody teaching them, that they get in a little bit of a bind, they'll sell their product for under what
Yeah.
it's worth.
Yep.
They won't put anything away for the future. They spend
Yep.
what they have, and it's not a plan that's gonna, you know, get them ahead or get them to the next level.
That's right.
So if they knew that there was possibilities for their business plan, their business model, that they could borrow some money to have a little bit of inventory and a little bit of cash flow, that they're not having to, oh, I gotta sell this piece so I can
Get home.
get home, or I gotta sell this piece so I can help with my cousin's funeral expenses.
Yeah.
Always something that keeps them from, you know, getting to just another step up to where, you know, they're not operating in the now.
Yeah.
But they're operating from, you know, I got a week's worth of inventory.
That's
now
right.
I got a month's worth of inventory that I can sell, and I can sell for a profit, that I'm not just existing for today.
That's right.
People that made some of the most beautiful pottery. And at the end of the day, if they hadn't sold enough,
Mm-hmm.
they would sell it for, half.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is if they had somebody teaching them and they could just say, you know what, I could get a business loan and I could have a business plan
Yep.
and then I could sell, a week's worth. And then put some of that away and then the next time I'm going to have a whole month's worth. And I'm not in this position where I'm just, having to survive.
Yep.
And some of the most fantastic artists, I watched them do it for years. And, when they got to where they couldn't produce anymore, they didn't have anything.
Yep.
And I don't want to see that to happen to anybody.
Yes.
Right? I would like to be able to teach non-Christians that there's a better way to do this business thing you're trying to do.
Right.
So, again, what I'm kind of saying here is some debt is necessary. Most people are not going to have enough money to buy a business or to, just have the cash on hand to do what I'm saying, even to have an inventory for an artist or some kind of a food service, I'll give you one of the popular ones that's been around for a number of years that I've watched go broke. I watched several of them go broke, is the transportation.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great concept.
Yep.
But they didn't take care, and they would get these large payments, and the reason I know is because I would see them come to different places, to auto dealerships, equipment dealerships, and they would pay cash for a piece of equipment or a vehicle. And then they didn't have cash to run their business.
Yep.
If people had just a little bit more, what am I trying to say? Maybe biblical wisdom,
Yeah.
that their business would, and even again, not just them being Christians, of course, that's my ultimate goal, is I want to see them in the kingdom of God. But I also want to see people blessed. I want to see our
Yes.
area blessed.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I'll just give you a couple of things. I'm not going to try to fix your credit tonight.
Darn it! Club's here.
But I'll give you a couple of things. If you're looking to do something like that, to get a business loan, or you want to build your credit up first before you start going to a bank or presenting your business plan. One of the best ways to do that, if your credit score is low or you don't have any credit, is one of the quickest ways is if you have someone that you're very close to that knows they can trust you, you can use their credit to get a co-signed credit card. So they have a credit card that they have let's say they have an 800 credit score. And they're willing to let you put your name on their credit card. So you put your Social Security and you apply under their name. So basically they're guaranteeing that you are a good customer. Your credit score will go up the next 30 days. It's, but please, if somebody does that, make sure that you don't use their credit and ruin their credit,
Yeah.
right? Again, we're teaching this so that if you have a business idea or you have plans to buy a home, and again, a home is an investment. It's, to me, that's not just debt. That's you not
Yeah.
paying rent, that you're actually putting money into something that's going to have value for you in the future, your family's future. Next is, don't miss payments.
Yep.
If you've already got some credit, you've got a credit card, you've got a revolving charge account that's reported, if you've got a car payment, don't miss payments and don't make the payments late.
Yep.
If you've done that, or if you're behind, the third thing is catch every past due account up.
Yep.
If you're behind on a payment, get it caught up right now.
Yep.
Like make
Easy.
yourself budget to get everything caught up to date. And then one of the things that'll help it, your credit score to come up automatically, is if you will pay down your revolving or your credit cards. It's called credit utilization rate.
Yep.
So if you have a credit card that you have a $3,000 limit on, if you go over 10%, it dings your credit. If your $3,000 credit card has $2,999 on it, it's going to lower your credit score.
Yep.
So pay those down. I'm giving you just a brief, I mean, there's lots of ways, lots of things, but then again, let me just do the last one so we're done with this part of it. Is limit how often you apply for new accounts. So,
Yeah.
don't go, well, maybe I want a new car. So you'll go and apply. And you didn't like the deal you were getting, so you go to another one. And then you go say, oh man, it'd be nice to have a new camp trailer.
Yeah.
And people do that.
Yeah.
They get in a mood and they'll just go and say, oh, I think I want to try to buy this, or I want to go buy a new horse trailer. And I can look at their credit score and see boom, 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 and it just keeps, every time they apply, it just goes down. Boom, boom. Sometimes 20 points a pop.
Yep.
It's used to be about 5 points, but now if you're applying quite a bit for new credit, if you go and apply for cars, your credit score just...
Yeah.
Does all that make sense?
Yep.
Can I say something about that?
Yes.
So I just wanted to say, I don't know, 2 cars ago, I went and bought, I didn't go with a pre-approval. And not going with a pre-approval, the car dealership will go ahead and apply for you. And it's like 5 hits to your credit score, because they're gonna look for the best deal
Shotgun.
that
Yeah.
they can find. But it's a hard hit every single time. So now I know, every time I go to buy a car, I'm gonna go with the pre-approval before I even walk in the door.
Yeah.
I'd be like,
Yeah.
this is what I'm doing. And a lot of times I'll look for something that's a soft hit to my credit score rather than doing a hard hit. So it doesn't knock my credit score down so much. Because it's gonna come down anyway, because you're going into debt with the charge of the car. So, yeah, just wanted to.
It's good.
Very good input. Yeah, so, and I will tell you, even good dealerships, they want the sale.
Yep.
And you might even know the salesman, but the finance guy, he wants to book your deal. So
Yep.
he's gonna shoot it out. And again, they're not concerned with your credit score. if they can get you approved, they don't care if your credit score drops 50 points. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh.
good, very good point. Anybody else have any?
What if you close all your credit accounts, will that affect your credit score?
Yes. I'm not sure how they, I don't know all of those details. I'm just being honest with you. I didn't really study that part, but they tell you that if you close a bunch of your credit cards, like you say, I don't want no more, I'm gonna cut all my credit cards up, and you close all those accounts, that actually,
Drop your card.
it sends it down. But if you have other stuff that you're paying, you know, if that's just what you decided you want to do, because some people, they will not have a credit card, period. They don't want one, which I honor their decision. But if you have a car payment and you're steady on your car payment, you know, one of the other things I forgot to tell you is sometimes if you're trying to build your credit, they will give you credit for you paying your utility bills, rent. If you can get your landlord to, I think they have a form they have them fill out, you're paying your rent on time, you're paying your utilities. They will help you boost your credit score
Yeah.
by doing that. It's a little harder process, a little more work for you. But the one thing I did also want to mention is if you're trying to build your credit score for some kind of a future, like to buy a house, or don't use the credit fix people.
Yep,
No.
They can't,
Yep.
they cannot do anything that you can't do,
yep,
and they're gonna charge you.
yep.
Don't do the, what's it called, debt settlement?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what debt settlement is they convince you to quit paying your payment, so the credit card company will settle for you for less money.
Yeah.
And what that does is that just,
Destroys your credit.
it makes you look bad because you're not making your payments. And sometimes they'll get you, but the honest part of what we said at the very first is, if you have the debt, you pay the debt. You owe the debt, you pay
Yeah.
the debt.
Yep. Yep.
Yes.
So, like, when purchasing vehicles, are you looking for a loan, would it be best to go like through a bank? 'Cause I mean, the past, like, cars that I have found was through a bank, and, interest rates were almost, not bad. But then I've also heard from one of my coworkers saying that she rolled all of her debts into her vehicle loan, just so that she can
Make one payment.
pay those payments.
I'm not a fan of consolidating, but sometimes people need to do that. It's on an individual basis. I wouldn't do it through a consolidation company.
Yeah.
If you can do it through your personal bank with the lower interest rate, or your car loan interest, if it's not too high, you know, that again was determined when you bought it, what your credit score was at that time. But to be wise,
Yeah.
it really is, usually there's hidden things, and most people that consolidate, it doesn't help them. So-
And the risk of that, especially with a car, is if something happens to the vehicle and it's totaled, your vehicle payoff on the total is gonna be way under what you owe because you added all this extra. So now you're making a payment on a vehicle you no longer have that affects your credit.
Yeah. So
I-
what,
Something I've done in the past is, I have multiple credit cards, and I wait for a credit card to be like, hey, we're offering 0% interest for the next 6 months if you roll these things over. Yes, there's like a 3% fee to roll those things over, to roll over the credit card debt. But you're no longer paying the interest of like 19% of which what
Yeah.
most credit cards are. So you get get yourself a buffer of being able to pay off that credit card for the next 12 months at 0% versus paying only on the interest, which is what you were doing when you had a 19% interest rate and, you know, your credit card, say it's like $10,000. You're paying $200 a month for just interest. You're not paying on the principal. You're not bringing it down at all.
Yeah.
No progress yet.
So I will wait for my credit card. I have like 4 different credit cards that I like shuffle around. And I'm like, all right, who's next? Who's next? You know? So, and it's worked, but it gives me a buffer of being able to pay down, only paying on principal rather than paying on interest. Because the interest is terrible, like having to pay $200 on something and you're not making a dent in it.
No.
All you're doing is making the minimum payment.
That's good. Yeah, they recommend, if you can, if you have multiple credit cards, one of the best strategies is if you get to the place where you pay each one to 0 every month.
Yeah,
Yes.
That's
the best.
That's the highest recommendation. You do that, then it just shows like a stellar payment history.
And so you're trying to open a business.
Yeah,
It's hard.
and it's hard, yeah. Pastor Husky.
Just thinking here, when I left to do hunters ministry, left my job and everything. And you will give me credit. Then the minister came, they said, you're up here about getting new things, no, on credit. God's going to change that, and people will have faith in you that you will get things on credit and you'll be paid it off on time. So, even though I didn't quite believe it, or kind of was scared to do that, when I went to some of these stores, they right away they gave me credit. No, you're qualified for it. And I said, you better check my application again. Yeah, you're approved. So that happened. But I've been on both sides.
Yeah.
I have open business where I had to repost some things later on throughout the year, so you had to pay the price for it. You just can't get away with it.
Yeah.
So I did it. I learned my lesson through that. So, but then I keep hearing the minister, where's your faith? You got faith. Believe in it. You got a rich daddy.
Yeah. And
So, I don't know how to word that. I know I have a rich daddy, but am I asking in a need, or is it just a want? How do you really do that?
how do you determine?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I am personally I'll use a credit card, but I pay it off. If I buy something, I know I've already got, because it's very easy, and usually my wife gets airline points.
Exactly.
Because she likes to fly and see the girls, and so she'll do that, and it works. But he really brought a good point: is do I need it?
Yeah.
Or do I want it? Is this a necessity that has to be done? That 84-inch LED TV
Right?
is not a necessity.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a very good point that you brought up, Pastor Husky. So,
Pastor, I have another question.
yes.
We get these letters saying that you have earned
let's say you still owe 50,000, and you wanna do $30,000 worth of renovations, now you're gonna owe 80,000 plus interest. So if you sell the house, you're gonna have to pay both of those loans.
The house,
Mhm.
what they've given you.
What they've given you. So they make it sound good, but it's kind of a con game,
Yeah.
so.
So is that the same as like, so a HELOC and taking money against your house are two different things, right? So a HELOC would be like a home equity line of credit, where, you know, say you have 90,000 in your home, but you don't take all of that out. So what's the difference between the two?
It's been too long since I looked at that.
Economics.
Yeah. The only thing
So I think on the equity line of credit allows you to take money in and out against what your value of your property is. But
Or
they
it's not like
usually,
They just give you a lump sum of like
right.
90,000.
Well, they'll say that you have $10,000 equity line of credit, which allows you to access without applying to up to $10,000.
Okay.
But then they charge you an additional interest rate on paying that back on top of your mortgage rate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So if your
And with-
mortgage interest is, say, 3%, that $10,000 would have a separate 3% interest.
Probably higher now.
Yeah,
with the equity
but
now.
just throwing out a number, that's how that works.
Yeah.
Whereas if you take the full 90,000, it's all yours, but then like Pastor says, when you go to sell the house, if you went to sell it, you would owe the full amount to be paid off. In both cases, you owe the full amount, but that flexibility, I believe they charge extra interest on.
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah, they don't they don't let you have that money for free.
No. So Pastor, I have one other example.
Yeah,
So like where Pastor Hosky said, do you need it? So sometimes we forget the value of waiting to get something. So for example, if you were to purchase a $3,000, you're gonna go out and get new furniture for your house and you do $3,000 and you do it on a credit card. If you do that using the current, which is about 22% interest, and you made only minimum payments, which is about $80, if you made your minimum payment, that would take you 284 months to pay it off.
How many years is that?
Like 40.
Oh my God.
And listen to this, the interest on that is $4,156.22.
more than paid.
It's more than you paid for your furniture. This is where those furniture stores and the places say, you can come in, the monthly payment's only $80. If you don't pay attention, you're gonna end up paying $7,000 some dollars for something that only costs $3. But if you saved $100 for a year and a half, you could pay cash for that item. And it only would have cost you the $3,000. And that's where credit, you have to understand this, there's good in credit, but it can get you in a lot of trouble and you end up paying way more for something than you intended to pay.
That's good.
Yes.
So what you're saying is if you don't pay the minimum, let's say that there was like, you have to pay like $30 minimum, but if you pay more, your, interest or your, balance will go down, right?
Over time, yeah, it reduces. But bigger issue is rather than paying more, wait a year and pay cash for it. Then you didn't pay anything extra. Because even if you pay above the minimum payment, you're going to still be paying a lot in interest. 22%, they calculate it a weird way. It's not like 20% at the end of the year. It's every month.
Yeah, it's
So
not-
they look at what you owe, they say 22%, they give you a payment. Your payment may be paying, if you pay especially the minimum, you're basically just paying the interest. If you pay $10 more, all you're paying is $10 towards your $3,000. So see how long it would take you to get that done? So that's why things, especially
if you're not a car and it's not a house, if possible, don't use credit. Or be wise, I've bought computers several times because I'll wait till it's 12 months, 0% interest. And then I make sure I make my payment. Every month, 12 months, I end up not paying any more. But if you miss a payment in that, this is the other thing they don't tell you. If you miss one payment in those like 6 months no credit or 12 months no credit, if you miss one payment or you're late, they consider that a forfeiture of the agreement. The 0 interest stops and then they add back interest. So if you're 6 or 9 months into it, they will add 6 to 9 months interest. That's again how people get in trouble. I can remember I do bookkeeping, and I had an employee who had borrowed $150 from one of these places. He failed to make his payment. By the time they went through the legal system and I got the garnishment order from the government, I had to withhold $3,500 from his wages between their interest and the legal fees on a $150 loan that he forgot to pay.
Ouch.
What you were saying was wrong. It's really, really wrong. So that's where you have, again, credit can be a tool. I have great friends that in Oregon, their family business, he used the credit card to purchase everything for his business. He'd pay it off. And every year, his family went on a paid vacation with the cash back they got from using the credit card for their company. And that's how he'd take his family all over on paid vacations. But he paid it every single month, so it wasn't a huge bill. All of the things that he would normally pay cash or use his debit card, he used his credit card, and then at the end of the month, he'd pay it off. So if you're smart with it, it can be a great tool. But it easily can catch you up in a mess if you don't understand all the hidden terms.
That's good.
Yes.
Anybody else? You got?
Yes, ma'am.
What are your thoughts on the Abraham snowball effect, or whatever that is?
His baby steps program, snowball. Yeah, so his big thing is he's very anti any debt almost. And so his thing is take your smallest credit card, pay it off as quickly as you can, and then take that amount and put it on your next one. What that does is you're paying more and more and more, bigger amounts, you're cutting your primary amount, what you owe, down quicker, so you're paying less interest. The other thing on a house, it does work with credit cards, but on houses, if you can make an extra payment on your car or your house, midway through the month, that goes directly to the principal, the original amount you borrowed, so it brings down your debt quicker and you end up paying less interest.
So what I do on my house and my car is I pay half the amount beginning of the month and end of the month. So, and what I've learned is because you're paying 15 days in, it somehow brings down
The interest
rate
amount,
that
right.
so, what they say is that by doing that, you end up paying an extra payment at the end of the year, which is gonna go to principal.
Right.
Which, at the end of your term, you end up taking like a year off what you're gonna pay.
Yeah, so if you can pay extra into it,
Good.
it's really good. And again, splitting that. So don't put the extra amount. So say your car payment's $400 a month. Don't pay $450 in your initial payment. Pay your $400 that you owe when it's due, and then pay the extra $50 couple of weeks later. And that somehow, I don't fully understand
Yeah, I
the
don't get
complexity
it
of
either,
it, but I know it works. I was telling Pastor Bill, I actually heard a loan company tell a bunch of real estate agents how it worked, and it works. Yes, ma'am?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is it good to refinance on something that you owe, like you pull?
Depends what it is. I
Depends
think
on
what
what
it
kind of
is.
interest rate you can get, I
Yeah.
guess.
And what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, vehicles are a necessity, right? Especially in our area. I believe houses, you know, are an investment. But a lot of times refinance, you know, it gives people a little bit of relief, but usually what happens is they didn't fix the problem that got them there first. So the refinance actually usually sets them back after another year or so because they didn't take care of the problem that caused them to get to where they needed to refinance anyway. If you can get a real big interest rate drop, which would be phenomenal right now,
Yeah.
like if you were paying 15% and you could get it at 6%, it would be worth something. If it's a substantial amount of money, you can. And if you needed somebody to, I use just the regular old T value, and it tells you, I plug in how much is owed, what the interest rate is, I can tell you what the payment's gonna be, how much interest you're gonna pay each month, so you could get somebody to analyze it for you before you did it, make sure it's something that's gonna actually save you money. And again, and I'm not saying you, but I say just most of us, if we got into a jam and we're trying to get out of the jam immediately, we need to fix what got us in the jam before we do something, right? Change some of our spending habits or, you know, pay something smaller off so that you have a little bit more to apply to what you need to apply it to, and get a good firm budget,
Yes.
which Carmen will do next week for us, right?
Yep.
Which you would be surprised when you get a budget and you learn that it's a great tool for you to be blessed with. You will be very happy.
Yeah.
You'll be happy people. Because a lot of people have no idea to follow a budget just to, you know, and I'm not the one that has to be down to the penny or the exact percentage. If you just get something that's general where you don't spend more than you make and you put a little aside for an emergency, you'll be amazed what peace you have.
Amen.
So that part of Dave Ramsey there is great peace when you can know what's coming, you have a little extra if there's an emergency, all of that stuff. It really makes a difference. Anybody else? Something.
I wanted to mention, like what you were saying, you were asking earlier about closing credit cards. One thing I wanted to mention about that is like, I can't remember what the term is, but the more credit cards you have open that are zero account balance, it increases, it's not the debt to income ratio.
It's the usability, not usable.
Yeah, something like that. So it shows that you have, you know, maybe you have thousands of dollars available to use. So even though you're not using the credit card, it's better to keep it open rather than close it. You know, and like you said, it's gonna bring down your credit score. So instead of closing a zero account balance, just leave it open, don't touch it, just leave it alone. And it's gonna help to improve your credit score, because it increases whatever that term is, I don't know what it's called.
I said it, but now I can't remember it. But, yeah. It's like usable, whatever.
Yeah.
Like if you have a $3,000 credit limit, they only want you for a good credit score. They only want you to use $300 of it,
Right, you got 10% of that.
10%. Yes.
About maybe 20 years ago, I got released from my job because there was less students at school. And what I did was I went through all my
Return.
retirement out. And we use much am I gonna receive, when I retire? And they said $200 a month. Unless if you pay back the retirement money that I drew up. So we had a accountant in Scottsdale. He says, you know what, put in 1,000 every 2 weeks that you get your pay period. So I did that half a year and I got that back. And now the retirement came back.
Yeah, that's a wise move.
Yeah.
If you have a retirement account, you really want to get some professional
Yeah.
advice before you, because some of it, they will penalize you if you withdraw it
Huge.
and tax you at a higher
And
rate.
tax rate.
Yeah, so. Those are good financial questions.
Very good.
In the past, I drew from my retirement, and I think I took out, I needed $5,000 like immediately. I don't know what people that needed $5,000, and I had to request, it was like $7,500, because right off the top, they took $1,500 from what I needed. And on top of that, it's looked at as income at the end of the year. I was taxed again because it looked like I had this extra $5,000 income.
Income. Yeah.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
don't take from me. It's not a good thing.
Yeah, there's very few times you can take it out. There are, again, need a professional.
Yeah.
And I'm not the professional. Sometimes some of the companies will allow you to borrow on your retirement, not taking it out.
Yeah.
And that can be a better option for a short-term thing. But yeah, make sure you get some professional advice or your company's accountant or somebody to tell you exactly what you're doing. Like you said, they'll get you.
You're like double taxed,
Yeah.
you know? And you lose the money, like you're not gonna get that when you retire. It's
Yeah,
gone.
and it's gone, yeah.
Timeshares. We almost got into it, we backed up on it. My sister, she got into timeshares. Now she came and he was having this stuff, she put money into it and then she's trying to get out of it. And I think that's a bad thing, ever getting into timeshares. Because all it does is take your money
Every month.
Yes.
No matter. So,
And she paid $12,000 to get out of it. It's not settling much, that's how much she paid.
there is a company that advertises some Texas that'll guarantee they'll get you out, but make sure there's not a fee. Let's stand. So we do want to, again, debt is not condemned,
Yeah.
but you should use debt only